Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Freedom Principle Missouri Conversations with the Candidate. My name is Byron Keelan and I'm the president of the Freedom Principle Missouri. We created this program for you, the voters. Conversations with the Candidate is an opportunity for you to meet candidates seeking elective office or learn about important issues impacting our state. The Conversations with the Candidate program is an effort by the Freedom Principle to raise awareness about issues, candidates, and to educate voters and to engage them in the legislative process. This program is being recorded and will be available in a few days on our Rumble channel. You can follow us on Rumble by subscribing to the Freedom Principle Mo channel. But before we get started tonight, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the Freedom Principle Missouri. We are a 100% grassroots-led organization. We are working hard to become the people's voice of Missouri. We're a statewide membership-based organization standing up for the citizens of Missouri. Our organization is for the people, by the people of Missouri. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Freedom Principle, please visit our website at freedomprinciplemo.org and join. Your membership is used to support our ongoing efforts to advocate for you in Jefferson City. I'd like to quickly make a shameless plug for our current and upcoming fundraiser, and I'm going to share my screen on this one if I can. I'll tell you what I do. I lost my PDF. Well, we're doing a Trump Watch giveaway, and let me just try to bring this up real quick. I don't know where to go. So I apologize. Must have closed out the window. Let me share the screen. Okay. So we're giving away, entering to win a chance for one of two Trump watches to celebrate President Trump's historic landslide victory. So you can go online at freedomprinciplemo.org and buy tickets online. Tickets are $20 each or 6 tickets for $100. We will be doing the drawing on noon on Monday, January 20th, when President Trump is sworn in as our 47th president. The winners will be notified by phone and by email, and the watches will be shipped overnight express. They're on order right now, and as soon as we get them, we'll ship them to the winners. But it's a great opportunity to support the Freedom Principle, and it's a great opportunity to really win a really nice watch. So with that, tonight we're conducting a special episode of Conversations with the Candidate. Let me just stop the share on this. And our guest is Representative Justin Sparks, District 110 in Wildwood area of St. Louis County. Tonight is a discussion about what could be a political earthquake in Missouri politics. And the way they're going to conduct this program is to allow the guest to introduce himself and take a few minutes to talk about his platform or what he's, why is he running for this speakership. But then after that, we'll have a conversation and we'll take questions from our online audience. We ask that you submit the questions in the chat, and then I will ask the questions to Justin and he'll respond. But if you would, keep your microphones on mute. So Justin, you just announced a couple weeks ago that you're planning to challenge Representative John Patterson for the Speaker of the House. And it's interesting that, the St. Louis Post-Disgrace has not really been too excited about having this, as they call you a long shot and say that you don't appear to be making significant traction. But if you listen to the grassroots people, we're super excited about this. But what made you decide to run and do this challenge?
Great question, and thank you, Byron, for having me on. To your question, by the way, a long shot. There's going to be a long shot that's going to be inaugurated as our 47th president, And I think that I like Americans love long shots, and I'm one of them.
Uh-huh.
So I would just say that we are in a bit of a crossroads, both in the state of Missouri and around the country, in my opinion. And that's what I heard when I was knocking on doors. I heard that from the people. They didn't care a hoot about the Republican Party. They cared about me and whether or not I was going to be
That's the
honest
garage door.
and
Pretty
whether
sure.
or not I was going to do what it is I said I was going to do. Was I going to be authentic, trustworthy, and represent their interests? So much so, in fact, that I had to actually start my own online portal for taking campaign donations for my campaign because so many people refused to give money if it went through WinRed or if the GOP took a percentage of it. That's how strong, and my district is a strong Republican district, and that was the response I was getting from folks. So I took that heart into serving them as a representative and for when I went into reelection. Now, here's how we got here. We have, through an informal nomination process over a year ago, selected John Patterson as the speaker elect. This was done without the input of the 55 member freshman class who were just elected. They had no say, and they have no say. Just like me 2 years ago, when you get sworn in, they simply tell you go in and push the green button for the Speaker of the House. And at the time, I didn't know that we had a choice of anybody else. And this is a big deal because that Speaker of the House, with all of his centralized power, will literally dictate the next 2 years for the entire body, all of your legislation, all of your priorities, everything that you want to do, and all of the 37,000 people that you represent through you will be dictated by that person. And so to say that you should probably have a say who that person is an understatement. And so our caucus, the Republican caucus, through an informal process, essentially nominated John Patterson. Now, John Patterson is the same John Patterson that voted against the SAFE Act, one of the only Republicans to do so. That was the bill that prohibited transgender surgery on minors. And he did so, but for most of the conservatives or people that call themselves conservatives in the Republican caucus, he didn't block the bill. He brought it up, voted against it, but we passed it. And thank God we did.
Mm-hmm.
But after he received the informal nomination for speaker, that's when kind of his true colors came out. And that's why we're having this conversation today. We could see that Amendment 3 was coming to Missouri. We could see the millions of dollars that were being spent. We could see the people gathering petitions in the parking lot of Target, Walmart. We had numerous reports of people being deceptive, complaints with the Secretary of State's office. And so we could see what was coming down the road, and we needed to do something about it. And of course, the strategy, of course, was initiative petition reform and a bill that I filed, House Joint Resolution 131, which would have given a pro-life alternative to Amendment 3. So essentially what would have happened was Amendment 3 would have got on the ballot because we were assuming it was going to. And then Amendment 4 would have been right next to it, and it would have been a pro-life option that Missourians could choose. We had a pathway in the Senate. I had a meeting with John Patterson, and I told him that this could be our way of combating Amendment 3. And he told me, Justin, abortion's coming back to Missouri. You're not going to be able to stop it. And I said, okay, that may be true, but I want to do everything that I possibly can. This is literally one of the most important things and priorities for the Republican Party and my constituents and for me personally. And so I started gathering signatures because he refused to bring HJR 131 to the floor for a vote to go over to the Senate. So I started gathering signatures, and other members started gathering signatures to compel him to do so. And he ordered those members to stop gathering signatures, and they complied. And then other members even wanted to bring up HJR 131 and discuss it in caucus, to have these discussions because this was such a big deal to so many within the Republican caucus. And he ordered
Are you listening to this?
He ordered that member to literally stop and not speak about this in caucus. And that member complied. And it was at that point that I realized what we were dealing with. We were dealing with somebody who was going to ascend to the speakership, who was going to be opposed to some of the most important things that Republicans care about, including blocking Second Amendment legislation after the Chiefs Super Bowl celebration shooting. And so fast forward, HJR 131 was blocked. He was successful in keeping it from the floor,
Mhm.
so it was not passed and sent to the Senate. Amendment 3 did get on the ballot, and in fact, many of us spent a great deal of time and effort trying to defeat Amendment 3, but we were ultimately unsuccessful because not only did HJR 131 fail, but so did initiative petition reform, which
Mhm.
most of us are very well aware of how that failed yet again for 8 years in a row by Republican leadership. So when Amendment 3 was about to be voted on, John Patterson spoke and said that it would be the law of the land and that he didn't believe an abortion ban was working for Missouri. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back because I was already wrestling in my own conscience of not voting for him, of just being the only Republican on the House floor to push a red button for the speaker, which would have
Mhm.
been pretty intense. And so basically, that's how we got here today. I thought if I'm the only one that's going to be hitting that red button, maybe there are others. And I think that we have reached a line in the sand where unless we stop electing liberal leadership in the Republican Party that is essentially opposed to all of our platforms and what we believe as Republicans, nothing's ever going to change in the state of Missouri. And yeah, you can walk around the Capitol with representative behind your name, but unless you're passing the priority policies that the people want, what good is it? And that's
Mhm.
not, I have no interest in doing it. And so, yeah, set off a little bit of a political earthquake because I'll tell you, the people's voices will be heard. And this is making my colleagues uncomfortable. They want me to stop. They desperately want me to stop.
Yeah, I could tell that. I mean, I've listened to several of your representative friends, colleagues, and even in the Freedom Caucus, talk about how they are having a hard time with this because they don't know what to do because they're concerned about whether or not their bills would get passed. And so it it really does uh, go to um, the thing about leadership. I mean, I guess the question is where uh, where is people's values on this whole thing when they don't want to stand up for what they believe in, and so it really is frustrating to see that.
I'll tell you, I do feel for my colleagues. A lot of folks, when they hear about how things kind of work in Jefferson City and the system that gave us John Patterson, it's not just John Patterson, the man, and the guy that made these terrible votes and did these things, that essentially he was part and parcel in bringing Amendment 3 to Missouri, but also the system that brought us John Patterson. We have to talk about that system of selecting leadership that gives us the John Pattersons of the world, right? But I feel for my colleagues because they're having this gut check moment because this vote is a conscience vote, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're being asked very directly by their constituents who can't understand why they're voting for somebody who has voted so in polar opposite. The only Republican that voted against initiative petition reform, the only one. So why
Hmm.
are we selecting him? Somebody that blocked legislation that could have defeated Amendment 3. Why somebody that voted against the transgender surgery for minors bill? Why? Because it seems like that's a character issue. At least that's my own opinion. Now, others can have different opinions, but if we as Republicans believe that we are to represent the will of the people, then we must do so. And the people's will and their voice is very clear. It's very clear. Byron, it's remarkable. People calling
Hmm.
and texting and emailing me from all over the state. And it is what makes this fight worth it because the same theme I'm getting from them is over and over and over again. Thank you. You've given me hope. You're giving me hope. this is the way this must happen.
Mhm.
I went on a nationwide show today in which they said this Missouri must lead the way. This must happen all over the country in these individual red states that elect this kind of leadership. And, if this just happened in the US Senate, for heaven's sakes, in
Mhm.
which liberal or moderate leadership is elected. Why? Because some of our own senators said because this person raises a lot of money. And that's been some of the pushback to me. John Patterson in caucus yesterday, people were saying, well, John Patterson's raised all this money to get Republicans elected. Great, great. Raised money to get Republicans elected. But if he stops and blocks priority legislation, as he has demonstrated he has done and will do, then what's the point? We
Mhm.
need to disassociate from people that raise money to people that lead and champion and advocate for policies that the Missourians want.
Right. And that's the big thing that we find frustrating is that when we go down there, we have these mandates by the people, and then you have people like John Patterson blocking, like you said, initiative petition reform. If it wasn't for us, we put out a big press release calling for people to call his office and write his office, when he threatened to kill IP reform on about 3 weeks before the end of the session. And then when we could see him just working behind the scenes trying to kill that. And it's really
Yeah.
frustrating because, there are so many things that we need to be getting done that can't be done because we keep focusing. Like this coming session now is going to be focused on Amendment 3 stuff, and it's going to be focused on initiative petition stuff. So things that are important about tax reforms and things like that are going to get probably overlooked or get put on the back burner because everybody's going to be focused on this. I mean, you had your caucus yesterday. I mean, what are going to be the priorities out of the caucus for?
Well, it's really strange because we now our top three platform priorities are: number one, Amendment 3; number two, initiative petition reform; number three, protecting the Second Amendment. That's really strange because that's what the priorities should be, and that's what the priorities should always have been. And yet, previous past behavior has defeated
Mhm.
in legislation regarding all three of those priorities. But now, this year, we have John Patterson saying now is the time that we're going to do those.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, he blocked the red flag laws, banning red flag laws because of the Kansas City shooting and stuff. And it's like he's been the big roadblock everywhere we go on this type of stuff. And now he wants to try to say that we're going to make this our priority. So I don't trust him at all. And that's why we are way behind you on, we're firmly behind you on this. But what are some of the things that, as a speaker, what is your vision for effective conservative leadership as a speaker, and how would you use that position differently than the House functions to be more towards, in your fireside chat, you talk about being for the people.
Yeah.
How do you make the politics be for the people?
Great question. And so, first of all, on day one, you have to be a champion and an advocate of exposing exactly what Amendment 3 is and how we deal with it, both constitutionally and statutorily. That's number one. Number two, on day one, you decentralize the power of the speakership voluntarily, which the speaker can do by leading and champion a rules change package, which decentralizes his power by returning it to the people. How does that really work? You're empowering the individual representatives themselves, meaning their legislation actually has a required time frame for legislation to be referred to committees. Right now, the speaker can sit on your bill until the last day of session. Many of my bills have that has happened, in which you
Hmm.
file bills, good legislation that your constituents want, and the speaker just doesn't refer them until the very end of session, where there's no time for them to actually be heard. That goes away on day one. The legislation from every individual member should in fact get heard, and it should go through the vetting process. It should receive a hearing. It should get a chance to go to the floor and be debated and voted on. That's how our process is supposed to work. Needless rules committees need to go away. These things are these these are no-brainers, in my opinion, of returning
Mhm.
some of the rules going all the way back to when the Republicans first got the majority. These are the ideas that I've put forward. And by the way, they're not just my ideas. I didn't come up with these out of nowhere. These are things that I've heard from all the members for years, for the
Mhm.
last 2 years that they've wanted. And it never seems to happen. Through every election cycle, the power of the speaker gets stronger, not weaker. And we also have to address the unelected bureaucracy, that administrative deep state that is so entrenched in DC. Well, it's in Jefferson City too. It's in all of our institutions.
Mhm.
And my idea was to set up a independent committee with subpoena power to look into each branch and what was going on with our unelected bureaucracy that is so powerful at the Capitol. And finally, we must, on day one, institute guardrails and safeguards into the House Republican Campaign Committee and how money and funds are raised and solicited from individual members to the House Republican Campaign Committee. And we must put truth and transparency in the form of caucus input for an elected board so that we, the members, before we contribute money to help other Republicans get elected, we need to know how that money is going to be spent and we need to have a say in it. I think that that's kind of
Mhm.
just common sense. But up until now, it's more the conversations that are being had now, Byron, by several members that have contacted me and told me this is the conversation, how it goes. I know that you're interested in this being the chairman of this committee. Yes, that's true. How much money have you donated? That exact conversation I heard from three different members. And that essentially needs to end. It
Mhm.
can't, the awarding of certain chairmanships, not all, but certain chairmanships, highly influential ones, must be awarded not just on how much are you giving, or how much are you supporting the House Republican Campaign Committee, but also meritocracy, right? It, these things, we must try to get back to a merit-based system in which the best people are in the best positions to benefit the body. And
Mhm.
that would be one of my top priorities.
Well, good. I mean, I certainly agree with that. I think I've seen too many good people who are not able to become chairmen of committees and committee chairs that shouldn't even be close to being in leadership positions and stuff. And obviously it's because of the way the HRCC is operated. But let me ask you this, you talked about how John Patterson was elected or, sort of chosen last year during the session. And I actually can remember when, um, being down in Jefferson City right before I think you guys were supposed to go into a caucus and sort of nominate John. Would you change how this process is done as far as the chief? I mean, would you,
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
like to me, it's very unfair, like you said, for a freshman representative to come in and have no say over who his boss is.
I know. No,
It, you know,
I completely agree. I think freshmen should absolutely have a say. It's funny because they have a say on all the other leadership, the speaker pro tem and the caucus, the caucus whip, and all these other leadership positions. The freshmen vote on, just not the speaker. Interesting,
ha-
isn't it?
has it? Yeah, it is. It's relatively corrupt in that aspect of things. But has it always been that way? I mean, I used to follow the Missouri politics and for a long time, and then I dropped out for a while, and started coming back in the late 2000s here. But has it always been that way? Because I don't think really it has been.
No, it hasn't always been that way. We changed it several years ago
Hmm.
with under the auspices of not allowing Democrats to meddle in the process by an open voting for the speaker on the day of getting sworn in. That's what the justification was. Uh, I don't ever fear public votes. I don't think any representatives should fear public votes of any kind. I understand the desire and for some to have a secret vote so that that you can avoid being punished or retribution or revenge of some kind. I really like and I think always no one should be afraid of truth and transparency ever. And if you vote a certain way, you should be able to articulate and defend it, whether people disagree or not. That's how our system
Hmm.
works. It's okay.
Yeah, so this would be, so the vote is on January 8th. Is it going to be an open or a roll call vote?
That has been the way that it worked last time, 2 years ago, and it has been traditional to do that as far back as I don't know how far back, but it definitely was 2 years ago when I was sworn in. Now, reps are being told that John Patterson is going to be voted in by a voice vote of acclamation. Strange because this is what Mike Johnson did in the U.S. House to avoid any type of opening the door for him losing his speakership. So I'm not exactly sure if they're going to change the rules or how they're going to try to procedurally get around a roll call vote. But I believe that the voice of the people should be heard. I believe that their representatives should go on the record. And if you vote for John Patterson, I think that you should be able to go to your people and articulate why you did that, why you voted for somebody with his voting record and his track record.
Mhm.
I know this is uncomfortable, and I know that this upsets a lot of people, but I must speak the truth because I believe in my heart the people deserve it. They deserve to know the truth, and our system will never improve or function the way it was designed until we bring that transparency back to it.
Yeah, I totally agree because I mean, regardless of, whether, obviously we are hoping that you win and, shake up the things. But the thing is that to me, this whole process, the sunlight that you're bringing on this is actually going to inspire perhaps the caucus to think about, or the Republican Party to think about how future leaders are chosen and how the House operates from that perspective with regards to the committee chairmanships and things. So do you think, you know, all in all, that this will have a potential positive change on things?
We've already seen it because at the caucus meeting yesterday, 2 years ago at that same caucus meeting is where I was handed the envelope with the card inside that said $20,000. And when I got up to speak yesterday, I said, thank God there aren't any cards with dollar amounts. We're already moving in the right direction. See, when
Hmm.
you actually start speaking out, people, you're going to catch a lot of fire, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But it actually does modify and affect behavior, and it even affects policy. We now have the John Patterson, who wants to be the next speaker, the so-called speaker elect, already articulating the top three priorities, which are the top three priorities that I've been talking about, lamenting about, complaining about. So I believe we're already moving in the right direction. We're moving policy. We're behavior is actually being modified. This is how you do it. Unfortunately, if there was any other way, we would do it that way. But sometimes this is what actually moves the needle. I'm just trying to start that conversation and open that door.
Yeah, how would you respond to those colleagues who feel that this is suicide attempt for you, and if they, and them if they support you? I think you talked a little bit about this earlier, but do you are you concerned that the legislation that you're going to put forward, here in a couple of weeks and next week, or actually next Saturday, or next Sunday, is going to uh, just die, or is that something you're concerned about, or is that, you know,
Yeah, I certainly know that that's a real possibility. If I win, I'm not going to hold it against the people that supported John. I don't. I think that goes without saying. That's not in my character, revenge and retribution. But I understand that it certainly could be against me because you can't have somebody do what I'm doing because it will upset the structure that's in place. A very entrenched, well-funded structure that funnels huge amounts of money into a lot of pockets. Okay, power and money. This is politics. And what I'm trying to do is awaken the people so that they can take their government back because it is theirs. And a lot of people don't like that, but that's been my heart from day one. And if I have to take consequences for that, I'm perfectly willing to do so.
well, I appreciate that because, I think particularly someone like me, and I think the people that we represent in our membership, generally, we know nothing is ever going to be 100%, and it takes time to do things and get things done, but we'd like to just have people that are honest
Yeah.
about the motives and things, and you know, we look to find people, and so I really appreciate that, because you know, to me, when you're an elected official, you're there to lead. Yes, you want to get bills passed, but you know, to me, it's to make sure that you're representing your constituents first, and you're representing the party also in the platform, because that's what we voted on. And so that's, to me, those individuals voting for Patterson are just saying they don't really care about the platform either. And have you talked to the Missouri GOP to see, are they weighing in on this at all?
I've had no direct conversations with the Missouri GOP. I'll just be honest with you. I was disappointed with their effort with Amendment 3. I was disappointed with the effort of our chief executive in the governor's mansion.
Mhm.
I believe that we could have done a lot more. You have to be a champion and advocate. You have to identify what's in Amendment 3, why it was bad, why it's bad law, why it's bad policy. And by the way, we're not just talking about policy. We're talking about people. When you're talking about abortion, it gets lost in the weeds into an academic conversation, and it's not, because you're talking about real human beings that don't exist anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you
Mhm.
actually have to make it real in those terms. I tried to do that with my Republican colleagues yesterday, because that's what drives me at my very core. We're talking about very real lives, and it is incumbent upon us to treat it that way, because that's what the people
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think a lot of the grassroots people I've seen on the Signal chat said that you gave a really great speech, and I think today that the Post Dispatch talked about it, how yeah, your speech didn't go too well or something like that. So it's, again, it's funny how this is working out. I mean, in talking with your colleagues, you know, what is the reception that you're getting from
Yeah.
these, you know?
They're very uncomfortable. I have a core group after I spoke yesterday. And by the way, if the Post Dispatch is disparaging you, you're doing something right.
Yeah,
That
right.
that that always encourages me.
Yeah.
And my colleagues yesterday was funny. I got a lot of calls afterwards, from members saying, some apologized for not being able to speak, but the truth is several tried to speak, but they weren't called on my behalf, which is fine. And also some were saying, I'm 100% with you, and I will publicly endorse you. And I told them there may be a time for that. But it was wonderful that they were so strong in saying, I'll go with you to the very end, because I was inspired, and that touched me, right? Because if you were in that caucus meeting, you would have just seen people disparaging me, calling me names, one after another, after another, after another, in an attempt to bully me to withdraw and take the pressure off of them, because they're receiving texts and calls and emails from folks that are saying, hey, vote for Justin. And why aren't you voting for Justin? Why would you vote for this person? And they're very in a very uncomfortable situation, because they have all of these excuses, but none of them hold water.
Hmm.
And because they should be doing what their constituents want them to do, and their constituents want them to vote for a conservative speaker that represents the values of the majority of Missourians, and that's not John Patterson. And yet, because they're afraid sometimes of getting collateral damage, or their bills not being heard, or not being able to work inside the system, or or maybe that they're in a position maybe to get some chairmanships or something like that. To all the people that are reaching out to these representatives, remember, even though it's very clear to you what they should do, and it is to me too, they are my colleagues, and I want you to encourage them to do the right thing. Don't call them names or anything like that. Encourage them, say, I'll be with you. We'll support you. We'll make sure that you don't get treated badly or anything like that. And even if you do, we'll be proud of you. We'll walk doors for you. Encourage them to do the right thing. And I'm hopeful that many of them will have that kind of gut check conviction in their heart, and that they will do the right thing and represent the people. This is a movement. This is an awakening. This is the voice of the people. And this is what it's going to take if we're actually going to change policy and change how things have been done for so long in Missouri. And I'm telling you, something is happening. and I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I do. I think, like you said, we, we don't want people to personally attack representatives and stuff. Obviously, they have their reasons whether or not they choose to support you or not. And,
Sure.
but it is kind of interesting how everybody claims to be pro-life on their campaign literature, but then yet, and that they're anti-trans, or they're against mutilating children, yet they're going to support someone, like you said, that does that. So it's kind of, why are you asking that? And I think that is the question that they need to ask, that we need to ask them, is why are you supporting John, if that is the case? But um, you know, do
Yeah, it's kind of
you
going.
know have you oh, did I lose you? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. I lost your but how can the grassroots, again, obviously, besides calling their representatives and things, what are some of the things? Well, let me ask you this. I guess when they vote for speaker on January 8th, it's Republicans and Democrats voting for the
Absolutely.
speaker. Have you reached out to any Democrats to see if they would support you? Because I know that there are particularly some you've had a good relationship with some of the St. Louis City reps, and there's some moderates in that area. It's, even though it's hard to believe, but have you talked to some of the Democrats to see if would they vote for you?
I haven't had any direct conversations. I think there will be a time for that. Um, you know, Democrats are opposed to me ideologically. I'm very conservative, and obviously Democrats are not. But what I am proposing with the speaker and decentralizing the power of the speaker and changing the rules would in fact benefit Democrats as well, right? Because empowering the people through their elected representation benefits Democrats. It benefits Democrats and Republicans.
You want me to go into my bedroom?
Some Democrat bills would be heard. So they would get referred to committees just like Republican bills would be. And we would debate them in the arena of ideas and on the House floor. That is how our system is designed. If they're bad bills, they won't get passed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Republicans hold the supermajority. But it is important not to run from the debate, not to run from the arena, but our ideas are better. And if they're better, then we should have that discussion. So you would think, in principle, that Democrats would certainly be interested in my candidacy, but we'll see how those conversations go.
Yeah, well, yeah. And what have you talked to a lot of the incoming freshmen to see where they are? I know a lot of we supported a lot of the new freshman candidates with our by endorsing them and things. I'm just curious, have you had a chance to talk to some of those, and how do they feel about this process? I mean,
So, well, they want a voice. They want a voice and a vote in the speaker race. I'll tell you that. And they don't think that any of the justification for not having a voice in who the speaker is holds water. And some of my strongest supports and supporters are in the freshman class. It's not. It's obvious. So I was actually really surprised by that. Many of which called me before I could even call them. Some of which had told me that they weren't going to be able to bring themselves to vote for John Patterson regardless. They didn't know if they were going to abstain or what they even could do, but they couldn't bring themselves to vote for such a person that had his track record. So, Byron, I'm just going to tell you right now, I think this freshman class has the potential to finally be the elected class that actually brings real substantive change to the way and the system that gives us our leadership and the caliber of leadership that we have. So in that regard, I have an unbelievable amount of confidence.
so let me ask, so you said that you were only going to serve 2 years. Has people found that to be more of a positive or negative? Or, I mean, I guess generally a speaker only kind of serves 2 years anyway.
Well, typically the speaker serves 2 years, but I said if I could have confidence in an Alex Riley, we would have certainly have that discussion. I certainly wanted to do that. It's kind of one of those things where it's unfortunately a lot happened in caucus yesterday that shook my confidence in a lot of people. And that kind of grieved me. I'll just leave it at that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one foot in front of the other, and we're going to focus right now on this race, January 8th, in number one, a public vote, and number two, that the will of the people would prevail. Finally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm just excited about this whole thing. I think it always amazes me that no one does want to ever challenge the status quo and things. And so I'm really proud of you for doing that. I think it takes a lot of guts, and we don't necessarily see people in legislative the arena with a lot of guts. So um and so I applaud you on that. But it was so outside of the rules changes and things of that nature, is there anything and obviously you talked about those three legislative priorities, but is there anything else that you would do as speaker to help try to bring more transparency to the
Well,
to the legislature?
I mean, I think that ultimately, whatever policies and procedures we can do that bring openness, transparency, and accountability, I'm going to be 100% in favor of. As you know, my background's in law enforcement as a police officer for a long time, and I mean that was something we lived by. That was something that we did everything by. Our entire ethos was truth, transparency, and accountability, because that was what was necessary to root out any bad apples among the policemen. You know, that's how you have to function. I think it functions very well. And by the way, if you want to know what kind of speakership and sessions we will have, just look at the Republican platform priorities. Just look at those, because
Mhm.
that's what we're going to do. We're going to be accountable to the people. This is their government. It is not us. We are not the government. The power should be with the people and what the people want done. And that's what we're going to do.
So so what, outside of just contacting the reps, when we contact the reps, what specifically do you think that we need to be asking them about this whole situation? But I guess obviously, are they supporting you? But I mean,
Sure.
what other types of things, as we're going to try to be sending out a call to action here to get our people engaged, and hopefully, as part of this, we'll get more people engaged in this process. But what can the grassroots do to help you with this?
Absolutely. To obviously to spread the word. So we're going to be engaging in a sustained advertising effort around the state and targeted districts from corner to corner to get the word out of exactly what is going on, how this happened, what the dichotomy is, what the choice is, and then a sustained effort of asking our representatives to do the right thing, to actually say this is a transformative moment for the state of Missouri. Just like we're undergoing a transformative moment in our White House and cabinet picks. And we should be having the same moment here in Missouri, and we can. It's not that hard. I know there's a lot of consternation among my colleagues, but this is really kind of simple. I simply couldn't bring myself to vote for John Patterson because of his past behavior, his voting record, and his uh, you know obvious blocking of priority legislation. This is not hard. There's
Mhm.
nothing secret here. This is all very transparent. I've been openly saying exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing repeatedly, and the obvious effort to bring reform to the system. It is necessary, and Republicans should do this voluntarily. We should not be compelled to do it because we have to do it. We should do it because it's the right thing to do, and it's good for all of us because we're supposed to be representing the people, and that's what the people want. And so, to make our system open and transparent and reflexive for the will of the people, meaning what the people want, we should be doing and listening. And there's not a whole lot of that in Jefferson City. There's not a whole lot, but that there's one thing that representatives fear more than their bills not being referred by John Patterson, and that's the voice of the people. They really do pay attention when enough people call them, email them, and talk to them, and have real heart-to-heart conversations, and say, "I know that it's difficult. I know that you have relationships up there. I know that you told John you were going to vote for him a year ago." But you know what? We've come to a moment, we've come to a line in the sand. There is another option, and we want you to pick it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I noticed, I saw your video on Twitter about that they moved your office. So you're no,
They, yeah, They assure me, Byron, that that is not because I was speaking out. They said that was completely unrelated.
Are you going up to the third floor or are you going down to the first floor? I guess that's the question of whether it's retribution or not.
No,
Or
I know
not.
it's yeah. I have an office. It is much smaller, but I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So Justin, where can people go to get more information, help out with contributions or anything like that? And
Yep.
where
Yeah,
can
and
they
thank
go?
you for that. Thank you for that because we do need support. We do need financial support. I'm traveling all over the state. I'm speaking at all the pachyderms clubs, the John Birch Society, all the different Republican clubs that you can think of, churches, local group, central committees. The outpouring is truly amazing, and it's only just beginning. So I'm going everywhere, and donations are very much appreciated. I'm honored. I'm honored and humbled. Sparksformissouri.com. You can donate online. And also, you can find me, Justin M. Sparks on X, Sparks for Missouri on Instagram, Justin Sparks on Facebook.
Okay, great. Well, I do want to let listeners know that Justin, you'll be speaking at the Free the People event on Sunday, December 1st at Moe's Restaurant in Washington, Missouri. You'll also be speaking at the next Franklin County Republican Central Committee meeting on Tuesday, December 10th. So for those of you that are in the area and want to meet Justin in person, I strongly encourage you to attend one of those two events, if not both of them. So Justin, I really appreciate you taking the time out tonight. I know you've been super busy with all this, but I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to our group and wish you the best of luck and whatever we can do to help you, let us know.
Byron, I really appreciate it. You're a great American.
Thank you and have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.